Hi, everybody. This is Gino Vanelli. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
Today on Rainbow Country, coverage of the 30th annual Hot Docs Film Festival continues with a spotlight on two LGBT documentaries. A Happy Man, a film that tells the story of Marvin as he goes through his gender transition. And Janelle, Niles, Inconvenient, a short film on two-spirit comedian Janelle Niles. That and more in episode 351, so stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, this is Emily Saliers from Indigo Girls.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Harder, porn star, burlesque performer, and the creator of Porn to Be a Star. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT FM in Toronto and now proudly in syndication on 12 outlets across Canada, from coast to coast to coast. The Yukon, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the east coast of Canada in Newfoundland, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a #1 LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com's Gay and Lesbian chart, as well as being recognized as Canada's #2 LGBT podcast on feedspot.com. So today, a spotlight on two LGBT documentaries that are part of the 30th annual Hot Docs Film Festival, running in person in Toronto, April 27th to May 7th, and streaming nationally May 5th to May 9th. On this episode, the documentary, A Happy Man, a film that tells the story of Marvin as he goes through his gender transition. Anthropologist, writer, and filmmaker Soňa Luther and Marvin are both my guests. Plus, Janelle Niles' Inconvenient, a short documentary on two-spirit comedian Janelle Niles. Co-director and award-winning filmmaker Kelly Zemnickis and Janelle Niles will join me in conversation. Plus in hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house, and on this episode I'm featuring some Canadian 80s, some bitch tracks, and more. All that lies ahead as we start Journey 351 through Rainbow Country. And our first stop, the Rainbow Country Bookstore. Today, journalist and author Brian Bradley reads from his celebrity biography, Outrageous Misfits, female impersonator Craig Russell and his wife, Lori Russell Eady. A book that on Amazon.ca has a rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars. And by the way, Outrageous Misfits is also an audiobook.
He went on to star in a movie credited as a groundbreaking film for gay culture and a force that pushed the Canadian film scene forward. I was 13 years old, incredibly naive, and living in a small francophone community outside Sudbury, Ontario, when I first heard the name Craig Russell. I was watching something rather bland on television, and all of a sudden, this colorful, flamboyant man was mentioned in a commercial promoting a documentary. I remember it so clearly. His coiffed hair and makeup, talk of a friendship with actress Mae West, brazen footage of him singing in a wig and gown, and mentioned that self-confidence eluded him despite his incredible success. I had immediate questions. Who was this effeminate man in makeup? Was he a crossdresser? He lived with an old lady movie star? And he got to make a movie? Why did he get to do things like this? Craig was like no one I'd ever known. I figure he was likely gay. I didn't know any gay people, nor did I see any in the television shows or movies I watched. Was this what gay men were like? I was skeptical, wondering why there'd be a documentary about someone like that and why it was worth talking about. I had so much to learn about the world. A decade later, I was a journalism graduate with an interest in social history and biography when Craig's name crossed my path again. I was researching Margaret Gibson, a celebrated writer who suffered from schizophrenia, and an article about her mentioned Craig. They had been friends and roommates. I wondered what that could have been like. I looked up one of their shared friends in the phone book and called her up, telling her I had an interest in both Margaret, the writer who struggled with what she called madness, and Craig, the flamboyant female impressionist who seemed so unrecognized and misunderstood. I got more than I bargained for. That conversation spawned so much intrigue that I spent the next decade of my life researching and learning about Craig. Initially, it was a hobby, but by 2017, my efforts were full-time, and I knew there was a book to be written about his life. His story had talents to be celebrated, intrigues to be understood, and curious situations to be explained. In learning about Craig, I came to learn about Lori, a shy and demure, theater-loving file clerk who joined his world of make-believe and became his wife. What a turn of events that must have been for her. Who gets to marry their favorite movie star? How did that happen? What was their marriage like? I had to know. I became just as enamored with Lori as I was with Craig, and a biography about one became a biography about two. And what lives they lived. As if they weren't both outrageous and interesting enough, Craig and Lori's life and their careers coincided with gay liberation. In the years after the Stonewall riots in the United States, Toronto had its first annual Gay Pride Week, gay bars quietly opened along Yonge Street, the local drag scene began to take shape, and there was a push to include sexual orientation in the Ontario Human Rights Code. The atmosphere was as motivating as it was frightening. Police raided bathhouses, and homophobic thugs lurked around parks and protests. Numerous men turned up murdered after frequenting popular gay establishments. Craig and Lori were not necessarily politically engaged in the changing times, but they shared the notion they could do as they pleased with no apologies or regrets. They defied gender conventions and eschewed the heteronormative. Their lives and careers blossomed at the beginning of the throbbing sexual revolution and the new wave counterculture brought to the stage, radio, television, and film by icons like David Bowie, Freddie Mercury, Carol Pope, and Boy George. Craig and Lori were strange people, square pegs in a world of round holes. Unusual, misfits. That is a challenging existence, but their challenges did not stop there. Few people knew it, but Craig's life was gripped by mental illness. Mental health was not only poorly understood when he was alive, it simply was not a conversation that was had. Craig self-medicated, and his choice of cocaine led to years of drug dependency. There wasn't a conversation about addiction then either. It was a vicious cycle from which he could not recover. Lori faced her own traumas. She had a physically and emotionally abusive parent, was a survivor of rape, and suffered multiple accidents that broke her body and took from her spirit. Suffering from his own mental illness, Craig was at times abusive too. Lori never realized she was a victim of abuse, nor did she see that, in her dependency, she was an enabler, and her behavior demonstrated an unhealthy obsession with Craig. Few knew about their challenges, and in time, friends, fans, and even some family came to look at both of them with raised eyebrows. Opinions and reactions to their outlandish behavior shifted from delightful curiosity to confusion and embarrassment. That judgment compounded Craig's and Lori's challenges, putting another ceiling over them that they could not break through, even after having seemingly broken through every possible barrier.
I'm Billy Newton Davis, and we're sitting here on Rainbow Country with the fabulous Mark Tara.
Up next, a happy man. Soňa Luther, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
Marvin, hello. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
I have to say thank you both for being here to have your voices, your stories be heard by the LGBT community and beyond, especially to talk about this new documentary called A Happy Man. A Happy Man. Soňa, you wrote this documentary, you directed this documentary, A Happy Man. What is this documentary essentially about? Talk to me about what you're getting at in A Happy Man.
Okay, so it's a story of a happy man, probably. And it's a story of Marvin, who we have here today with us. He's a transgender man, and we follow in the film, we follow his transition story. But this time, in this film, we don't focus that much on the process itself, but more we focus on family and family relationships, and I would say like the changes in micro world of Marvin and his family.
I will say I love the aspect of this documentary that that features Ivan.
Yeah,
Marvin,
he's everyone's
Marvin's husband.
He's everyone's favorite.
Involuntary hero.
So Soňa, my understanding is you met Marvin in 2008, I believe. So how did the two of you meet? Was it socially? Was it work? How did the two of you actually meet? What brought you together?
Well, at the time I was going to Stockholm to as a PhD student with my husband, and we met. At the time it was my boyfriend actually, and we met at the airport where Marvin and Ivan were going to Sweden as well. They were moving there at the time, and as we all know each other in Bratislava, obviously because it's a village. No, not really. But by accident, we knew Ivan. We knew his face. We weren't friends, and we started talking, and we became friends. And we the life developed, and we stayed friends.
So Soňa, it's one thing to meet someone and recognize their face and become friends with them and all that sort of good stuff. But at what point did you recognize that you wanted to make a documentary around Marvin? When did that coalesce for you? When did that concept and idea come to you to make a documentary around Marvin?
Well, I would say that at first our life stories developed plus minus in the same way. We both of the pairs we settled down, we had children, and then Marvin's coming out came in, what was it, Marvin, 2017?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he came out to us through video call, basically. And I think that you approached me probably also partly, not only because we were close friends, but also because he knew that I'm an ally. He knew that I worked, because I'm an anthropologist, besides being a filmmaker. So he knew that I worked with this topic a bit. It was a research on transgender children, but I think that he knew that, but this is my interpretation, he knew that I will probably react with compassion and that I would be open about it and be supportive. And I hoped I was. And then we were talking some more, and I think that at that point you, Marvin, were quite anxious, and you wanted to somehow reach out to others who shared this experience with you in a way. And I suggested film, and I was very afraid that he will say no. I didn't count with the option that he will say yes, actually. And I was very happy that he actually did. And also he got Ivan on board, and this is how the story of the film started.
So Marvin, Soňa comes to you with the idea of doing a film, a documentary around you and your experience and your process. What went through your mind when she said to you, "Hey, let's do a documentary about you and your transitioning process"?
It actually happened a little bit different, because we didn't really know the scope of it from the beginning. So what Soňa approached me with was an interview, a 25 minutes interview that we would do together. And it wasn't really clear how it would be shown, maybe some festival in Slovakia, something like that. And I felt like, yeah, well, this is great. This is very much needed. I'm safe here in Sweden. I don't really care all that much what people say about me personally in Slovakia, that kind of approach. And it was also very early in my process. So I was going through the phase, I think that's common to a lot of queer people, when you come out and you start looking around yourself and you get this feeling that you really need to do something. And that's when a lot of people, and I did it too, like turn to activism and really like feel like, oh my God, this has to change. This is not okay. This is not okay. How come this is happening? So I had a lot of this frustration in me. So I felt like, yeah, this is one of the things that I could do, and maybe it could help someone. And then it started snowballing from the 20 minutes interview into something much more. And then it was just, every time Soňa came with, we got this money from this organization, so maybe we're gonna make it 60 minutes, and we can come and film in Sweden. Is that okay? And I was like, and every time we came with this update, we had to sit down with Ivan and reevaluate. Yeah, but I don't regret it. I think it was a good decision. I think it's good that we did it.
I would agree. So Marvin, you are married to Ivan.
Mm-hmm.
The two of you have 2 children, and the documentary captures your evolving relationship with your family, your immediate family, your husband, as well as your parents. How was it for you, Marvin, living your life, going through your transition with a camera in your face, essentially documenting all of this? What was it like for you during that period of time, for you personally?
Since we made it large of the film is made during the pandemic. So that was one aspect of it that made it sort of surreal, the entire existence. So, the camera wasn't the weirdest thing about our lives at that moment, I'd say. But also we film it in like increments. So there was always several months when we wouldn't see each other, and then the crew would come over a weekend from Slovakia, stay here in Sweden with us for 5-6 days. We would do some filming, and then they would leave again, and then we would do some Skype calls or Zoom calls during that the period of time when we didn't see each other, and then they would come in a few months and film again. So it was like in increments. So in a way, it felt a little bit like a diary, when you like live through something and then you write it down. So I don't know. I mean, for me, it was the fact that I knew Soňa, that we were really good friends, and I was really comfortable with her, and that I trusted her. That made all the difference. That made it possible for us to do it. Basically, I don't think we would have been able to be so open, or we wouldn't do it in the first place if it were with anybody else. So we wouldn't have done it. So yeah, I think it was really comfortable and safe. Mm-hmm. It didn't feel like an intrusion or anything like that.
Soňa, were there limits or boundaries that you guys set as the filming went on, that we won't talk about certain topics or issues or get the kids involved too heavily? Were there those negotiations, those talks in regards to what would and wouldn't be shown in the final edit?
I wouldn't really say negotiations. The only thing which we knew from the very beginning and which we agreed on, both Marvin and Ivan and me as an author, is that we wouldn't show kid faces, and we wouldn't expose them like personally. This was something which they said that it's non-negotiable for them, and I agreed since the as it was said from the very beginning. It was very clear to me that this is the right choice. Also for me as a filmmaker, me as a mother, I wouldn't do this, and I would feel that it's an exploitation basically of them, as they cannot give their consent. That's number one. Number two, I wouldn't want to expose them and even pose them questions which they possibly don't think about, or focus them on something which is not important for them and would be possibly interesting to the audience. So this was number one. And I'm very happy with this decision. And I think that their presence is very much felt. Then there were boundaries which we actually didn't talk about. And I somehow felt that this is the line I don't want to cross. To give you an example, I knew that I don't want to disrupt their privacy in terms of questions about really spot on questions about sexuality, for example, as I don't think that it is important in the story. I think for me it is very much a story about everydayness, family, and these kind of core values which make the relationship between two people who live together and have children together, which is the principle and core of this relationship. Of course that intimacy and sexuality is part of this, but I think this is private, and I wouldn't want to force them to make this a sort of key topic in the story, as it is not. And as I understand it, as a person who lives with my partner, my husband, for 20 years, and it is something which should stay in private, also in these kind of stories, I feel.
Marvin, something else we learn about you is that you are an accomplished author with several books to your name. How first of all, what type of books, what type of novels do you write?
I'm a genre hopper. So I've done contemporary gay fiction, I've done romance, erotica, paranormal, a little bit of fantasy, everything. All of it queer. That's the connecting factor.
And how long have you been writing?
Since forever. But I've published my first book 2017 with an American publisher. And I've been doing it since.
So in the documentary, Marvin, you say something that to me makes a lot of sense, and it's something along the lines of, when I look in the mirror, I want to see the same me I see in my head, the same me I see when I look inside myself. So this is my last question for the two of you, and it's simply this. And Soňa, I'll start with yourself, but what do you hope audiences come away with after they've seen A Happy Man?
Feeling of compassion, number one. Number two, I would like them to question their perception and idea of what is family, what is marriage, which things are important in this kind of things in our lives, and that it is something actually deep in the core of this is something which is universal to all of us, no matter whom we love and who we think that we are or who we feel that we are. And it is that we all need to be respected and loved, basically.
And Marvin, what do you hope audiences come away with after they've seen A Happy Man?
I've been asked this question before, and I tend to answer in a joke that everybody will see it and they will leave the cinema slightly confused, and they will sleep on it, and then they will wake up accepting of all the colors of the rainbow. But it doesn't really work like that. But what I feel is that when we talk about transgender these days, there is a lot of othering, There's a lot of focus on the differences. How are transgender people different from cis people? This is like when you look at the media, when you look at the representation of trans people, there is always this focus on the difference. What is different about trans people? Why are they like that while we are like this? And what I realized during my transition was that the struggles I went through were super similar to what everybody else goes through in different situations in their lives. And it's just, okay, in my case, there was this gender detail, but all of these questions that you ask yourself, who you want to be, how you want to live your life, who you want to spend your life with, everybody faces those same questions. Everybody tries to find answers to those questions, and so that they can live happily. So I kind of hope that there will be less of this otherness, of this focus on differences. That's it.
And Soňa, the film, the documentary A Happy Man, it's doing the festival circuit scene right now. Over and above that, where can audiences, where and when do you think they'll be able to see A Happy Man?
Okay, so at Hot Docs we have the world premiere, so we'll see where it will lead us from there. We'll for sure make some festivals and screenings and things like this. And then, as it is HBO Max co-produced, it will be on HBO Max worldwide.
Well done. Well done. I have to say, Soňa, Marvin, well said, well done, well filmed, well made. Congrats on the film. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A Happy Man is part of the 30th Annual Hot Docs Film Festival, in person and online. For more information, hotdocs.ca.
Hi, this is Michael Anthony Alago, music executive, photographer, author, and you are listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Up next, Janelle Niles, Inconvenient. Kelly Zemnickis, hi, how are you?
I am well, Mark. How are you?
I am well. Janelle Niles, hello, how are you?
Great. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having us, Mark.
I have to say thank you both for being here to have your voices, your stories be heard by the LGBT community and beyond, especially to talk about the new short documentary, Janelle Niles, Inconvenient, That's the title of the documentary. Kelly, let's start with yourself. Mm-hmm. You are a co-director of this documentary. Talk to me about this documentary and how it came about. How did this film come to be?
Yeah, definitely. So I've co-directed the film alongside the fabulous Cass Gardner, who can't be with us today because she's off filming something else. She's back at work. This film, the seed of it really was planted a couple of years ago. I had just finished working on my first documentary, and I was kind of hungry for like another story, what to do. And I came upon an article in Reader's Digest magazine, and there was an article about Janelle. And I talked to my co-producer of my previous film, and I was like, hey, I think this guy would be an amazing subject for a movie. And, you know, the stars didn't align like perfectly for anything happening, but Janelle and I did connect via Facebook. And then I got word of the second year of this Hot Docs series called Citizen Minutes. And I applied with this story about Janelle and got in. So that is how the film came to life. Yeah.
So Kelly, sticking with yourself, what would you say this documentary essentially is about? What are you getting at in this film?
With the series of Citizen Minutes, is just taking like, you know, everyday Canadians doing astounding things. Although in our case, we're taking everyday First Nations community members who are doing astounding things. And I was wanting to show how one person can affect change, being, you know, the theme of the project. And I thought with what Janelle's been doing with the show called Got Land is doing a really creative way of getting everybody who lives in this country, whether they're Indigenous or non-Indigenous, to talk to each other through doing stand-up. You know, you may not be so inclined to you know, see on your Facebook post, oh, there's a lecture happening at this university or this college. I'm going to go down and listen about things that I don't really know a lot about. You may not be inclined to do that. You'd be more inclined to go to a comedy show and you're laughing and learning, and she's just like killing two birds with one stone. So I just thought that was just a really important way to show the amazing work Janelle is doing, and just also, you know, the incredibly cool things that can happen at a comedy show. You can laugh and you can learn. And I just think that's like a big win-win.
So Janelle, this documentary is essentially telling an aspect of your story. Generally speaking, what are your thoughts on seeing an aspect of yourself, a portion of your life, up on the big screen? And this is your story. What are your thoughts on that?
It's really surreal because I knew when I was a very young girl singing into the mirror that I wanted to be a star. However, when it came to something like this, I just wanted to make sure that people could see that my fast track career, how comedy has got me out of a dark place. And with my comedy, I get to speak on those tough topics that people are a little shy about. And I always attribute to George Carlin. He changed the world with what he would joke about. And I want to follow suit and be able to change the world and hopefully communicate and express solidarity through humor as our mandate with Got Land. So it's just really surreal that I get to have this. It's a privilege.
So Janelle, you are mixed race. You are part Black, part Native. You are queer. You are a comedian. Your comedy, to me, seems to revolve around sexuality, around race. Do you find those hot button topics? Do you find it easy to make those hot button topics funny? Does that come easy for you?
Oh, no, it's not easy at all. it's not easy because being a Black, Indigenous, two-spirited woman, I get told that I'm playing too many cards, and that I have to stop talking about politics and just be funny. So it's hard to kind of like break that mold because I'm putting hurdles in front of me to jump over. Basically, I'm making it harder for myself to get that laugh, but we need those laughter. We need those laughs. We need to expand people's minds. So I love just as a narcissist, I love to talk about myself, but but these are just my experiences, my observations, and how the world is today, especially with Indigenous and Black peoples from Nova Scotia, because we were silent for a very long time. And I finally think we have permission to speak, even though we never needed permission. We just now have the pathway.
So, Janelle, how do you make these topics funny? How do you bring light to, some dark issues?
I would have to say, in comedy, there's almost like a formula you have to find. You have to find the truth, and then you have to find the punchline, So as I called it down up, I will create the tension and then break it. So I have to make them uncomfortable. I want them to get uncomfortable so I can make them laugh, and then they are now comfortable with what I'm saying. Sometimes people say that, I didn't know if I was allowed to laugh. I'm like, you're at a comedy show. You're allowed to laugh. But these topics, we just, like, I'm in Ottawa. They just took a module that day, why these jokes aren't funny. I'm like, yes, you're allowed to laugh. Like, this is the platform to do it. So I don't know if I answered your question, but if I had to like pinpoint it, it's just finding that glimmer of what is that word I'm looking for? Relatability, so people can get on board.
So, Callie, how long did it take to make this documentary?
I'd say from start to finish, we're probably looking at about 5 months. Began in, I feel like it was maybe about November 2022. Had to think for a minute what year it was, because time has meshed together post-COVID. Like, what day is it? Yeah, I think it was like November 2022. And then filming was a wild and wacky long weekend. We got down and dirty, straight to work, heading up to Ottawa, and post-production followed pretty soon after. Working with the timeline set for Citizen Minutes, it was kind of like go 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 go. It was sort of this amazing immersive program for making a film, and for me, just being the first time in the director's chair, which, as I say, I happily shared with Cass. It was this just amazing learning experience from all the prep I did at the end of last year, quick shoot filming, and then going right into post. It was kind of like, seeing the world just flash right by. But yeah, it's amazing. At certain moments, I was sort of like, oh gosh, how's this going to work? How's this going to come together? And like now I just can't believe it's done. Like it's in past tense now. It's just so weird.
And I should say Citizen Minutes is a program at Hot Docs, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So it's a series, like for folks who know about the Hot Docs Film Festival, you Mark would go submit a film that you had shot, and you get into the festival, and it would get screened in the spring. But with Citizen Minutes, they have commissioned filmmakers that got selected, myself included, to make films, as I say, just showcasing how everyday folks can just do something extraordinary. So kind of like making a film for Hot Docs. So a bit of a different beast from the regular festival that you would submit to. And this is the second year that they have done it.
So, Kelly, yourself and Cass Gardner, the two of you are co-directors on this documentary. Why two directors for a short?
Well, for our film specifically, just dealing with the fact that I was, presenting, when I initially submitted, it was just myself when I presented the idea when I entered it rather into the submission. So because I'm presenting an idea that deals with, Janelle, who's First Nations, and just a whole roster of things that I am not as your average straight white lady. But as a filmmaker, I knew there was a story there. So it just made complete sense to partner with a fellow filmmaker of an Indigenous background to make sure that I was doing this story properly.
But isn't that the way, I don't mean to cut you off, but isn't that to me seems like the best way to do to tell stories, especially if it's not necessarily your lived experience.
Exactly. I've heard some folks be like, oh, why did that happen that way? And it's like, well, that's what you just said. It's like, I want to tell this story the best way possible. I know enough as a storyteller that I know there's a really great idea here, that there's a really incredible story here. I may not, though, as much as I can do all my research, I may not have all the bits and pieces to know, oh, okay, that makes sense why this is being said, or that makes sense why that's going that way. So it just made perfect sense and was the right thing to do, I think, to just partner up and make sure we were telling the most complete picture possible and making a fantastic film at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So Janelle, Gotland, this is your comedy show?
Yes.
So what is
Gotland.
what is Gotland? What is this show about?
So Gotland is an Indigenous comedy show, hence the name. Gotland. We're just, we're poking fun. But Gotland is an Indigenous comedy show, and we express solidarity through humor. And some of us also just tell jokes. So we're comedians who are Indigenous. I know the great Don Kelly, he told me the other day, he's like, I'm not just an Indigenous comedian, I'm also a comedian who's Indigenous. So what we wanted to do is to create the space for our people to come and laugh all ugly at jokes that are tailored for our people. There was not a space here in Ottawa, and I realized that when I started out, I was doing a lot of Indigenous centric jokes, and the audience were just like, what is this girl saying? I just kept trying, and then I was like, why am I handicapping myself? I should hopefully create a space for us. And with Gotland, we created a space because I noticed there was only one or two Indigenous comedians on a show at a time, and we felt like the token Indian. And I was like, no, this can't be. So I asked all the Indigenous comedians I could find in Ottawa, a lot more than just three of us. And we brought us together, and I'm like, what should we call this? And they had these long, convoluted names. I'm like, no, it has to be something short and sweet, like Gotland. And then Gotland was born. And it was only going to be a one-off show, actually. It was great. APTN was there. The whole venue was packed. And at the end of the show, people came up to me afterwards and like, when's the next one? And then the next one keeps coming. So I'm so happy that it took off.
So I'll say this. This show, Rainbow Country, airs across Canada, but it also airs in Ottawa on CKCU FM.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So just a little shout out there to Ottawa. Hey. So Janelle, Gotland, would you also say that it's a showcase as well?
Yes, it is a showcase, especially to showcase the comedians in the surrounding area, nation, or reserve, because a lot of communities don't even know they have these artists in their community. So when we do bring Gotland across Turtle Island, it is a showcase to show that there's emerging, aspiring artists also in the community. And we've done showcases for big comedy festivals, just like Just for Laughs. And we got our first Just for Laughs last, I believe, September. Yes, last September in Toronto. And we're doing another one in May of this year. So it's amazing that we actually can showcase to the big guys, the entertainment industry, as much as we love showcasing for our own communities.
Bougie natives.
Yeah. I'm a bougie native.
What or who are bougie natives?
I say bougie native means I got $50 in my bank and I can buy beautiful earrings like these. Well, Bougie Natives is actually a song from Snotty Nose Res Kids out west. And when they did that song, it just made us feel more comfortable wearing our beaded arch, because when people would see us wearing all our beads and stuff, they're like, settle down. Why do you have to look so like that? But as soon as Bougie Natives came out, everyone's like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to look bougie. And it's not much as looking fancy or rich, but it's actually showcasing the artists of our community. And I make sure that every time I do any show, I am showcasing the artists of my family, my cousins who create beautiful earrings or bolo ties or the such. So I just I try to make sure that it's not just comedy we're showcasing; it is also the beadwork.
So I'm not sure who to ask this question to. I'm just going to ask it, and whoever wants to answer it can, and hopefully somebody does. But so the stand-up portion of the film is shot in a restaurant in front of an audience. Very almost like dinner theater kind of thing. Is there any thought of or plans to do like a stand-up special, comedy special?
So I actually I have been contracted out for a comedy special. I can't say who at the end of the year, but it's not Gotland, but it is a different Indigenous comedy group that is coming out west. However, I hope that one day that Gotland gets so big that Netflix, hey,
yes, Netflix
picks us up. And then we can actually showcase comedians even down south. I call the Pantaloons of Turtle Island. We can have all sorts of niche, from whether it's Native Americans or the Indigenous of Canada, just coming together and showcasing our talent to the world, because we're still here, but a lot of people down south like to think we're not. And let's change that.
Yeah, I hear you. So I have one last question, and it's for both of you. And Kelly, I'll start with yourself. What do you hope audiences come away with after they've seen this documentary?
My biggest hope is that someone walks away with the belief that they can go do what they've been wanting to do. I think it's so important to have, as a stand-up myself, it's so important to have someone on that stage that looks like you or has maybe, a bit of a story that you can relate to. So if there's another First Nations or Indigenous person in the audience watching this film, they're like, oh, she's doing stand-up. I'm going to go down tonight to my local comedy club and try a set. Or whether it's, I'm going to go make a movie, whatever it is. If it inspires somebody to believe in their voice, because all of our voices matter so very much. If it inspires someone to just go out and do the thing that they've been thinking about, then we've made a great film.
And Janelle, for yourself, what do you hope audiences come away with after they've seen your documentary?
A conversation. I always want to leave. So if I didn't leave you laughing, I hope I left you with a conversation on the ride home. And hopefully there is a little Indigenous person there that wants to aspire to do comedy. We help everybody at any level of comedy, whether you're aspiring amateur or pro. If you want to be part of the show, just give Gotland a ring or find us on Facebook or on our website at gotlandcomedy.com and just send us a message. We want to make sure that we have that representation, because I know I'm not something people have seen before, and that little girl or little boy or little them, They're just out there. They're just out there, just waiting, having somebody to show them that they can. And I really love Monique, the comedian in the States. She inspired me because she said, I'm doing this for the little girl who isn't here yet. And I was like, I'm that little girl. I'm the one she's talking about. So if I can just pay it forward as a comedian, that's all I want.
And Monique just came out with her own, I think it's a Netflix special.
Yes.
Have you seen it, Janelle?
Yes, I did. And as someone who grew up with an IEP in the special classes, I was like, yes, finally someone said it out loud because I've been waiting. So she's still doing it. She's still giving me that inspiration to this day.
And she kind of came out as bisexual.
Ah, yes, she did. Eh? I have a chance. No.
On that note, I have to say, Janelle, Kelly, thank you both for being on the show. Well said, well done, well filmed, well made. Thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark. This was a treat.
Well, Alan and She McWitch, thank you so much.
Janelle Niles, Inconvenient, is part of the 30th Annual Hot Docs Film Festival. For more information, hotdocs.ca.
Hi, I'm Paul Poirier, Canadian champion in ice dance and 3-time Olympian, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Taking us to hour 2 of Rainbow Country, the comedy stylings of
Janelle Niles! Oh, look at you! Look at you! Now look at me. This isn't even my final form. I wanted to look good for you guys tonight, but I left my jingle dress at the cleaners. My name is Janelle Niles. I am a First Nations Mi'kmaq woman from Sipiganagady, Nova Scotia. Can I share with you guys a creation story? But I gotta get all stoic. A long time ago, in the late 1980s, lived a strong black woman who just wanted a party, but the white man turned her away. Discouraged, she heard the drum on the wind. Come and party, come and party, come and party. And that's how I was born. Thank you, that's my creation story. So the creator, he blessed me with the spirit name. And it's Please Laugh at Her Jokes. It's actually First Rays of the Sun Woman. Beautiful, eh? Normally we get something shorter like Fish Boy. Or Bear With Me. I actually knew someone named Bear Ass. How I found out, my auntie calls me up. She's like, hey, Janelle, you need to come over and look at my little bear ass. I'm like, Auntie, what are you saying? He's your cousin. Come give him a kiss. I'm like, Auntie, I'm not coming over to kiss your little bear ass. Then we never talked again. But First Rays of the Sun Woman. Oh, I love that spirit name. Thank you, Creator. And it's accurate, because every morning at the crack of dawn, I go outside and I sing my traditional Indigenous morning song. Na Soňa, no. I gotta stop because that's copyright infringement right there. Any landowners in here? Any landowners? Any single landowners? I'm just trying to get my land back, one white man at a time. No politicians, though. No politicians, because all they want to do is lay pipe. What in the whatsu what tan is up with that? I get told I'm a little too political up here, that it make white people uncomfortable. Are you uncomfortable? I will try harder. Like, I'm black and native. You know, I'm half black, half native, and I'm a twin, so she's black and I'm native. That means my mom, she's black, and my dad's Pocahontas. He hates it when I call him that. He really does. He hated it so much, he up and left and never came back. You would think he was black. What I learned that day is never trust a native man who's going out for a pouch of tobacco. But I was born political, you know? I was born political. I'm half black, half native, right? So I like to envision me and my mom's stomach, like, this is gonna piss some people off. You know? Like, I'm a little baby inside her womb and I'm all like, freedom. Not the convoy kind. Not the convoy kind. And some people say I get a little too preachy, but I was raised Baptist and we say our words with conviction, right? Like, how am I supposed to get my jokes out without a little bit of flavor, a little bit of seasoning? Sorry, you don't know what that is. Just imagine, like, ketchup with a little bit more attitude. Are we talking a sriracha? God, well, steal my land and call me Rebecca. We're having a great time, aren't we? I just got back from Alberta, and when I was there for a big show, I decided to hit the bar. And I hit the bar, and a native guy sits next to me, and he's a hockey player. And he's like, oh, I got this $20 voucher. I'll pay for your drinks. I'm like, good. Here's $20 because I'm not letting no fucking man I don't know pay for my drinks. So I gave him $20 and I left respectively, keeping my dignity. And then I go to the show looking real hot. I got my hair did, I got my makeup done. So I go back to the bar after the show and I look at the bartender, all different, and I'm like, hey, do you recognize me? And he's like, yeah, you're the lady who ran out on her bill. Canadian apology mode activated. I'm so sorry. We were having like drinks and he had a $20 voucher and I gave him a 20 and he's like, stop. I believe you. I'm like, oh, why do you believe me? He's like, oh, because that cheap ass only had $32 to his name and he showed me and then miraculously pulled out $20. I'm like, oh, cool, I was about to suck your dick. I actually lived in Ottawa for about 20 years, and this is where I started comedy. And when I started comedy, a fellow comedian comes up to me, unsolicited advice, and he comes up, he's like, Janelle, if you want to be funny in Ottawa, you gotta be smart, and you gotta be clever. And I'm like, I've been to Carp in Richmond. What the fuck are you talking about? I used to say Vanier, but there might be some of them here. So I go up to him, many years of comedy I've done, I go up to him and I'm like, hey, why'd you lie? You guys are smart though, don't worry. Like, why'd you lie? And he's all like, you took me seriously? You're a woman. Just act dumb and show your tits. All right, so this is the time I take off. What I learned that day, though, listening to a male comedian is like eating fish out of the Ottawa River. Don't. Do you know what grinds my sage? That I'm all out of time. My name is Janelle Niles. We'll all end the meeting.
Phone rings. I got a message from the mayor. He's going to call me back the next day. I get the call, and he said, if you'd accept, we'd like to honor you with the key to the city. There was an event later that year in May. Just a key, right? Like, key to what? a decent job, a good singing career. It's really a metaphor, but it's history. So a reporter wants to talk to me and says, well, so it's key, right? Like, what's the big deal? I says, well, not everybody gets the key. So I looked it up, and I guess it is kind of a big deal.
The date, May 17th, 2018, when trans activist Susan Gapka made history by becoming the first trans woman to be presented with the key to the city of Toronto. By the way, past recipients include Rush and the Raptors. And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, simply head over to marktara.com, where everything is connected, and hit the archives banner. To keep up to date with the show, check out my socials at marktara. The podcast is available on all major platforms, including audible.com and iHeartRadio. Finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, we are living in days of making dreams come true, so believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.